to be told the truth. That's all we want. And like Obama said, people don't tell you the truth. They've got something to hide. Anyway, thank you very much, people. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. If you do have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Yes, what's your name?
Sally.
Yeah, Sally.
I was just wondering if anybody else noticed a really odd question in the census this year, and I don't remember seeing it in previous years. It was question number 16, and I meant to bring a copy tonight, but I forgot. And I can't remember all of the things, but it was like there was 8 different sub-questions under question 16 to do with our health, and they were really specific, and even to do with I'm pretty sure there was one to do with focus and one to do with interaction with other people, and there was other physical questions, and I was wondering if that was me being paranoid or if it's their way of monitoring the future sort of health of the nation, if you know what I mean. Had anyone else noticed that really odd question?
Yeah. Had you noticed it, Ray?
I didn't notice it in the. I didn't notice it in the census, but what was quite interesting, I got a survey form sent through to me if I would fill out a health form, and it was like asking very specific questions, you know. And I just thought, wow, and they're using this information to, you know, work out the health in your family. And I don't know, I just get this feeling that they're gauging to see, you know, what the health is of the nation. Maybe if we say we're really bad, they might let up on the chemical spraying. Sorry? I'll have to find the name of it, but it was acting for an international body, that's all I know. They were collecting that information. I've got the form at home somewhere, I can get that for you, yeah.
Any other questions?
Isn't there a public meeting, a protest coming up?
Yes, there's a protest coming up. There's a demonstration happening on the 20th of April. We're going to be outside the farmers area in Nelson from about 11 or 1, I can't remember, 1 o'clock I think. 2? 2. And that's on Saturday, just after the market, is that right? Yeah. So, yeah, we encourage people to come along and help us. We're going to have a big display, aren't we? Lena's all organising. So, yeah, it will be very peaceful, of course. We just want to raise awareness. Any other questions? I did see a hand up. Sorry, what's your name?
Laura.
What's your question?
Since I've come to Nelson, my sinuses and allergies have been bad, really bad, and I've tried
Sinus? Yep.
everything. Allergies I've never had in my life. Coming from England, I should have had everything, but I haven't. And all my doctor gave me was antibiotics. And he turned around and said to me, the only way you're going to get rid of this is to leave Nelson. And he says, because the pollution is so bad, now everybody can't leave Nelson, obviously. What is there we can do to help ourselves and as kids? Because my grandson's got the same thing.
I can relate to that because it's happened to me too. I got sinus problems up to 2 years ago, and you know, started with fabulous nutritional cleansing products, and that really helped my health. But also I've taken on to cleansing with clays. A lot of people in our group are busy learning about what is good to cleanse with. Isogenics, zeolite clays, bentonite, even just using your coriander or pesto, parsley, sorry, to make pestos. It's very cleansing. Yeah, I was going to do some information at the back, but didn't get time. So, yeah, if you want, I can help later and you can talk to me. Oh, Jackie here is nutritional cleanser, and she's got a new. When is it?
Next Thursday night.
Thursday night.
Yeah, next Thursday night at my house, but just see me about it and I'll give you the information.
Yeah. So, there's another question at the back.
When Hyman put into Google the new American sea tree, you'd start to see what's happening. And it's happening because we're not paying attention. That's the only reason it happens.
We're being late, being kept busy as well.
Well, we've got a sense of powerlessness here, and the only way above this is actually to become powerful, to to come back into our power, and we're not going to do it by being fearful about what's going on. There has to be another way. And we're in a collective here. This is our air, our food, and everything else. So, you know, we can't be powerless. We can't go to rugby matches anymore and think this is just going to go away. It isn't. And it's got to this point because we have been watching elsewhere. We are an indebted and enslaved race now. And it's becoming more and more clear. And we cannot deny it because by denying it, we can't find a solution. And it's not just chemtrails, although, you know, this is having a bad effect, but it's also the whole new American century, the TPPA. I don't think people really grasp what that is. You know, this is a new American century. Monsanto. We're going to have artificial food if we don't watch out. It's
happening now, by the way. It's in the most of our food.
If I could just say something about, I saw a YouTube clip of Nick Smith, our environment minister at that time, talking about chemtrailing or aerosol spraying, and it was just the levity and the. Has anyone else ever seen that? That YouTube clip? Yeah, it was just absolute levity and just, you know. Denial. I mean, yeah, absolute denial that you're just a nut. It doesn't exist. I mean, you just deny and, you know. So it's like, unless he's changed his stance, you know, these people, there's obviously a blanket conspiracy.
We do have that footage, don't
yeah.
we? You could show it to me.
Yeah. And you know, we don't know what the leverage is that these people have been either threatened with or the promise of some sort of technological, you know, trade-off. But it's certainly going on. We've got to realise that this level goes to the highest levels. We're not talking about, you know, just that they are in denial because they don't know. They're in denial and there's some reason behind it. So we're not, you know, and as to make, you know, as a persistent widow who sought justice in the Bible, you know, she knocked on the judge's door and knocked on the door, as Jesus said, and kept on knocking until she got justice from the judge because he was just so sick and tired of having this woman in his ear. And, you know, but Alexandra Haig said this about protesting, and with all, you know, fantastic to do something. He said they can, and he was, I think, Madeleine Albright's predecessor, the Secretary of State, and then you had Hillary Clinton, and another one or two other. But he said, look, they can protest as much as they like as long as they pay their taxes.
I mean, what I was thinking when you said that was that, you know, I've looked at other chemicals that's been used here in New Zealand, and I suppose one of the chemicals you most probably heard of was DDT. Now, DDT, although people were complaining about it was affecting their health, and it still took about 10 years before it finally got banned. And I think New Zealand was one of the last countries to ban it. 10 years it took. So just think where we are with chemtrails now, geoengineering. It's been kept out of the spotlight for people. It hasn't come up on mainstream news. It hasn't been in the papers. And I don't know how they can control it, so it just gets avoided. I'll get you in a second. So it really gets me to show that they've really got quite a control over our information and what we're willing to accept. And I guess it's like there is a thing out there now. If anyone talks about chemtrails, they're those nutters or those conspiracy theorists, or, you know. But now there's a whole range of people coming out. These are professional people from all walks of life talking out, and they're concerned. They're concerned about human life. They're concerned about the impacts this is. And, you know, we are like frogs in a saucepan, and the heat's being turned up. But the thing is, you know, we've got to decide when we as people are going to jump out of that pan and start screaming, hey, this isn't right, I don't like what's happening, I don't like what's going on. So, yeah, look, lady there.
Sorry, I'm just a bit over-eager. I was just thinking that they look like really big planes, and I was wondering if anybody knows, is there somewhere in New Zealand where they land and take off from, or are they from out of our country and they just keep flying over all over us?
Both.
It's a global phenomenon.
Yeah, well, I know there's a couple of American bases, and it's very hard to find out, but Pine Gap, there's a big place in Pine Gap, and there's another place Did you know the name of it at all? They've got American soldiers based up there. They've been training a few people. So. Oh no, there's another one. But yeah, this will be kept very secret. It'll be very hard. I know Indonesia at one time were complaining about American planes taking off there. The Indonesian authorities wanted to know what they were doing, and all I know, if you look on it I think on the internet, I think there was a thing called Cloverleaf, CIA operative planes. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. Project Cloverleaf, and I believe they're CIA planes, which is a little bit scary. Okay, who's did you want to?
Question? Do you have a question?
Oh, no, she's asked it. It was about how, like, we know there's a military base in Vienna. Has anybody investigated that in terms of flying over?
You know the answer to that one? No. I do think myself that some of the planes land elsewhere, not in New Zealand. And I also believe that they landed in secret places around the country. I know the chemtrail planes now, and they fly behind me. And usually I know where they've been. They've been down south, seeding down there. So it's very hard for us to know because we can't fly with them.
Yeah. I was just thinking that maybe if we were looking on, well, I'll take them out of Google Earth, but I'm thinking in Chicago, maybe that far south. But you had to kind of go on a drive. If anybody wants to go on a road trip, you could probably drive and follow the chemtrails. Except they do switch them off at, you have to be faster, yeah. But you could. I mean, there must be somebody that knows where they are.
Where's the nearest HARP station then?
It's in Berlingsflat, which is down in Christchurch. Is that right? We do know that there's HARP down in Antarctica, and there's big, superpowers own that. Pine Gap, yeah. And there's many around the world. How many? About
180.
180.
There's another thing. In England, some years ago, they carried out an experiment by overriding over the TV the frequencies which gave people a flu-like symptom, and it was an experiment to see for crowd control. And maybe this thing's still going on.
Well, I don't know. I actually heard something that Margaret Thatcher got. I don't know if she had a lot of problems with demonstrations, but I believe they got some technology over from America, and I think they call them Gwen towers in America, and they mostly look like cell towers, and they can use certain frequencies to target people in geographical areas. I know there was a story about an MI6 van was parked at Brighton Pier, and there were some vagrants at the pier, and apparently they were using microwave energy to get these vagrants to move away from the pit. They're just trialling this thing. I know in Israel as well they've got microwave dishes instead of machine guns on top of their jeeps. You might see them around, and they can be 2 or 3 kilometres away and have effects on people. So this is the technology we're dealing with today. It's quite sophisticated.
Why is our government so interested that we have, rushing through that every household in New Zealand has this digital new TVs?
Yeah, new digital TV and smart meters are beginning to roll out. Now, I don't know if you know, one of the things that under Obama healthcare, he wanted to introduce in his bill RFID chips. They're GPS tracking chips. And ideally, I guess, when they want to aim for a cashless society, they most probably want to have the infrastructure in place that, it's a control aspect, They want everyone to make sure they pay their taxes and belong to the system and dependent on the system. So that's what we're getting towards. That's what we're being steered towards. Once they control our food, at the moment I find it very hard for people in America. I think there's over 100 million people who are in work. They're on food stamps as well. The price of food has gone up. Now, I don't know what's causing this, but obviously the cost to grow food has increased for a lot of farmers, and that cost, the people have to suffer for it.
Do you think that New Zealand is used as a guinea pig for these chemtrails?
Yeah, well,
I have been in Australia, nearly every winter over in Australia. I've never seen chemtrails in Australia.
yeah, well, I think you'll find, yeah, that's a good question about being the guinea pig country. It's been said quite a few times. I think we're quite isolated. It's a good country to test things out. And
I do know that they are being controlled in Australia because I was over there about 2 or 3 months ago, and yeah, it was heavily changed. But then again, I think it's only just increased in the last probably year, so it might have been after. Yeah. And certain areas do get chemtrailed a lot.
Maybe not in the outfits.
Yeah, no. Yeah, a lot of Brisbane is all manipulated. Good question though.
Yeah, it's maybe not so interesting.
Are we finding signs in New Zealand of the forest dying and crops becoming
Definitely.
Maybe think of the kauri trees that have died up north.
Yes, there's a lot of mould affecting. I notice on my walks how much it's changing too. I go up in the hills and see a lot of dead trees or dying leaves. Yeah. Insects too are shorted. There's a shortage of insects. I don't know if you've noticed there's not so many flies and not so many moths. Bees, bumblebees actually look really skinny. It's funny.
yeah, what's quite interesting is there was a colony collapse of bees, and there was a company called Bee Logic they were finding what was killing it, and they found a lot of Monsanto's chemicals were killing the bees. Guess what? Monsanto bought the company. It's quite scary.
And they've got their own bees now too.
Yeah, they have got Frankenbees, so they've obviously got a solution for the problem. But the thing that gets me is, if you are in a position of power, why would you put a eugenics person in charge of the policies? And why would you put the vice president of Monsanto rubber stamping the Food Safety Authority when he was already responsible for putting a carcinogen in the milk, a growth hormone in the milk. I think it's called sarotopin or RGBH, growth hormone in the milk. And Obama had over 4,000 complaints not to appoint him as the food safety advisor, and yet he was. So yeah, these are the questions as people we should be asking. But I just got funny thing. I wouldn't be dumbed down that much not to get alarmed, not to. And I keep saying this. It's like I started to go on a heavy metal detox. I went into the local pharmacy and I thought, have you got anything for getting rid of aluminium? And he looked at me really strangely and he said, what do you want that for? I said, haven't you had anyone in asking? He said, no, we haven't. And he gave me something. I think it was outdated. And he gave me a bit of a deduction. It was supposed to be $150, and they done it to $115. But yeah, no, so it's a bit of a worry really. But I think we all need to go on a heavy metal detox here. We might all start thinking.
There is a lot more pain. I notice some people complaining about pain and getting injuries. And that's one of the common things, I think, with the things that are being sprayed and how you're feeling, and headaches. And I don't know if anyone has noticed that. It goes together with the chemtrails.
I was going to suggest that if people are worried about Roundup spraying,
Yeah.
you can get a chap called Andy Evans will always let you know on your emails when it's going to be sprayed and where. I get those messages regularly because I'm one of the people of them. There's a fix. It gives me chronic fatigue symptoms.
It's terrible, really.
And I don't have chronic fatigue.
No. Solutions, yeah.
Like with a group of people here, let's not just go home. Like what's going to happen next? What can we do?
I like
you.
I like Jackie too.
The lady down the back, sorry, my name's Jackie, hello. But you brought up some salient points, but if we just all go home and get frustrated and share this, that's great to make other people aware. But I wonder what ideas people have about possible action solutions. It's great that you guys are doing a protest, but I actually don't think that's particularly effective. I just think that helps other people be aware, but it doesn't change anything other than awareness. And so I'm just wondering what ideas people have or what have they used before that's been effective in terms of action. Because obviously going to see Nick Smith one by one won't do anything.
please.
That we should write to John Key, every one of us.
Yeah, well, I've tried John Key.
Thank you. I was a diver for many, many years and an instructor. I worked on the Fijian reefs, counting the amount of coral that was dying. It was bleached coral. Now, bleaching of coral is a really good climatic indicator of all not being well. That was 20 years ago. 40 years ago, I lived in Africa for 10 years, and DDT was finished in all of the Western Isles and the Western countries. But guess what? It was still being pushed out into Africa, and having read other books on it, it was being pushed out into every third world country. When they stopped producing it, using it in our countries, it went straight to the third world countries. Much less observation. The third thing, this very week, our government are bringing in new rules about protesting.
Yes.
And you can actually be fined apparently up to $2,000 for protesting. All things to think about.
And spying.
I don't know if anyone here's heard of Codex Alimentarius. Has anyone heard of that? Oh, yeah, a few of you have. Apparently, you know, a lot of protesters in the past have protested about these pesticides, persistent organic pollutants, and they've had them all banned, and they must have spent a lot of energy doing it. But under this Codex Alimentarius, they're bringing 7 out of the 9 persistent organic pollutants back into the food chain. This is the new food law. So, yeah, there's more concerns. I mean, I don't want to get overwhelmed, but I just think we've got to realise we're dealing with a big corporate entity that's making money, and I don't think our health is really top of their concerns or their priorities. So we've got to learn ways of taking back control. You know, why do we buy the food? I mean, they don't want to label this stuff in the supermarkets. I think they've got laws in America that they, you know, to stop people labelling the stuff. They want to do the same here in New Zealand as well. And we've got to learn to take back control. But the thing is, what we need to do, I think, the most is to get our knowledge up. We need to understand the facts, what's going on. And we need to know what products are being supported by which companies and stop using them. We've got to stop feeding the monster, stop feeding the dragon. And as long as we keep feeding it, they'll keep getting bigger.
And I think one of the most important things is to raise awareness in numbers, because at the moment we're in very small numbers. But when we have bigger numbers, we'll have a lot more gusto behind it, really, to get things done. We'll have lawyers, we'll have other people. Anyway.
The biggest roadblock or blockage I come up to when talking to people about it is no one has any proof. No one knows where the planes fuel up. If they fuel up overseas, how do they have the fuel capacity to get here, fly backwards and forwards, do their thing, then go back to fuel up again?
I'd say there's more technology we don't know about. I would say they have fueling up.
Maybe so, but the thing is, until there's some proof saying, oh, here's a fuel station, here's where the spray is, until people are finding shipping consignments or spray has to be sent to somewhere to be picked up. Until people see that, everyone will always think it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, they all think it's a conspiracy, and I think as soon as people do know that, I think you've got to watch your life.
Oh, yeah.
Because if people do know stuff, you know, you're looking at, they're protecting. This is the chemtrails and the chemtrails cover is the mostly, they say it's bigger than the Hoover Dam project or whatever. And well, I don't know the Manhattan. This is, you know, you know.
People are murdered over this.
It's that, but I don't know. You know, there are whistleblowers coming out, but I don't know how long they survive for revealing this.
The former FBI, he's dead.
Oh yeah, Ted. Oh, that's a good one to follow up. Ted Gunderson, I think his name was. He was the former head of the FBI, and he was very vocal about that. So he didn't last very long. So yeah, and but I would suggest you look up Project Cloverleaf or try and find information on that, and that will give you some indication. Now I know these planes they normally unmarked planes. They look like civilian planes, and Some authorities, where they've flown over certain countries, they've changed their call sign from a civilian plane to a military plane. And this has become very suspicious by certain authorities. I'm not sure if it was Russia or one of them. And one plane, they pulled it down. And so there is information that they, have accosted these planes, these chemtrail planes.
Planes can't hide on Google Earth, can they?
Yep. Yes, they can. Some of them are offline. You can
Okay, there's more people over the back there.
It's really just, could you do this again? Could you have another film night like this?
Yes,
and if everybody in this room tells half a dozen people, this room could be packed. We don't all need to come again, but if we tell other people, and if you do this
We'd
again,
like to do it every 3 months.
oh yes,
It's just the cost factor.
or more.
How much
We'd
advertising
be able to
did
have a
you
look round. I mean, I don't know if someone could just pass a hat round and we could just like contribute to the hall hire or whatever. Because
don't mean to interrupt, but is there a Michael or Julie Warren in this room?
Julie Warren.
Julie Warren or Michael Warren?
Michael Warren, Julie Warren.
No? That's all right. There's a police on the phone, that's all.
They're on to you already.
No, I haven't changed my name.
Okay, over the back.
I'd just like to say something. There's a lot of issues going on around at the moment, everything escalating. Did you know we had a town hall? A what? A town hall. Now it has a town hall. It's the Trafalgar Centre. I think, somebody said, meet here. There's a lot of issues coming up, and I think it's time. If Occupy Wall Street taught us anything, it's about a General Assembly. And I think it's time we had a town hall meeting, because there are so many people concerned. I'm really interested in what you just said about New Zealand signing up with Monsanto. I want to know more about that. On the 27th of April, there's going to be a march up Trafalgar Street about the asset sales. But that evening at the Victory Community Centre, there's going to be a movie called Occupy Love. And its world premiere is tomorrow, but we're going to show it at the Victory Community Centre on the 27th of April, which is a Saturday, at 7 p.m. and it's Koha for everybody to come. And that raises some amazing stuff about what is going on, because we are colliding with a lot of things. So I think a town hall meeting would be good.
Yeah, so again, it's always down to, we've got to find evidence, and these companies, they're innocent until proven guilty. And it's down to the general public to find emphatic or empirical evidence what they're doing. And until we get to that stage where we've got that, empirical evidence, they'll carry on doing what they're doing. They'll just sidestep the issues. And unless we've got some very genuine politicians or MPs that are willing to put their necks out on the line, they're going to continue to do this. And just like DDT, even though they do find out it's harming people, it will take maybe another 10 years before it even gets to a point. So we've really got to learn from our history.
I realise that this is a really serious issue in the sense that unlike something like 2,4,5-T in Vietnam, which was defoliating and making the whole place incredibly toxic, we kind of knew it was going on, and then I was part of in the 60s sort of protesting against this, but I can understand the challenge seems to be, first of all, a lot of people have got to see this film, because you need thousands of New Zealanders really actually understanding this, because this is so sinister. You can't just show up and you can see the people dumping it. It's all being done behind the scenes.
In the sky.
And in the sky. And I think that's the first step, is actually mass awareness. Then you can take the next step so you're not standing alone. I'm kind of semi-shocked by it.
What have you noticed?
Just what?
No, you're absolutely right. But have you noticed here in New Zealand, if you try to tell something to newspapers or to they don't want to put stuff out. It's just like, or the radio stations or something like that. It seems to be, I don't know if they're licensed or some sort of control mechanism. They have to check things out with their bosses first before they can do stuff. So there's a very much a control element going on.
Censorship starting to happen in Facebook as well. If you start posting things through Facebook, there's censorship happening now where they shut your account down.
Yeah,
and they're monitoring what you're. And so anything that you see on the internet, save it to your hard drive. It's really important, and pass it around through friends. I think word of mouth is really, really important. Through Facebook, I've got people now who are actually starting to question who thought that I was a fruitcake. You know, who thought that I was just kind of some type of conspiracist. You know, trade me message boards any way that you can that's not controlled by the media while we've got access to it, because the time is going to come where it's not going to be possible to use electronic media to do that, I believe. I also believe that the Canterbury earthquake was engineered, that it wasn't actually caused by accident, and that you have a look, they just had an earthquake in Iran the other day. You study what's happening.
It was around 20 or 30 above 4. I mean, it's right 60 miles away from the nuclear reactor. I mean, there's just
absolutely
amazing amount of
and,
it. Right.
Reverend Michelle Hopkins on the internet, she's a reverend who puts out some really amazing stuff, and she has really, really, really factual and really credible videos and things on the internet. I'm not very good at information, but she is she's talked about New Zealand, the Canterbury earthquake, what's happening here, and it was political as well, because we didn't jump to America.
Yeah.
Well, this is the whole thing. This is a new paradigm that we live in. Well, not a new paradigm, but this is really, it goes very deep. But you know, the thin edge of the wedge is, I mean, really for something to come out of tonight, and that I don't know everyone here, but you can basically assume there probably is someone here who may not be on our side.
Yeah.
Just assume that. You know, that something like a Trafalgar Centre event, and that's going to take resources and money. I mean, you really need enough people to get behind it that would actually make this a very prickly issue. Maybe with the newspapers.
Yeah. I mean, just to answer that lady who goes on that one, was that another one of the things used for HARP was tomography, and I don't know if you know, Littleton Harbour as well had an exploration thing for looking for minerals and stuff, but HARP apparently resonates on the Earth, and it can find frequencies, so they can find whether it's rock, whether it's water, whether it's gas, whether it's shell, with the frequencies that it resonates back with. And they use it for looking for oil and things like that, and it's called tomography. But apparently there are places that they've done it in Haiti, and apparently if you do it on fault lines, it can trigger off earthquakes. And so this is another thing that we really need to look out for. And some people say that Japan, there was a lot of HARP activity over Japan when that Fukushima going on. So, you know, we're dealing with something very sinister here. And, you know, there's someone once said, I don't know who, it's dangerous to be right when the government's wrong. You know, and now, this has got severe implications because, you know, heads got a role at the end of the day. This is like big stuff, you know. And, you know, it's gonna, you know, rock a boat. It's gonna rock a big boat. This is very serious.
Have you told them they're in North Korea now, the big balloon, the big HARP vessel that goes around the sea? It's just off, outside of Korea now. So they've got it there in case, you know, they need to use it for earthquakes as weather warfare.
Hi, through everybody. I just want to say, is like, have you got an email or a Facebook that?
We have a Facebook group.
Obviously, we don't all know each other, so like we're all raising very similar issues.
Yeah, we're on Facebook.
Glenn at the back there.
Cool.
Chemtrails over New Zealand, the Facebook group.
Emails and Facebook.
The other thing is, if you're Nelsonians, like Janice was pointing out, Victory Community Centre is awesome. Like that guy from Iceland came a couple of weeks ago. Some of you guys might have been there. There's like, what, 300 people in there. And because it's a community resource centre, it's a lot as far as hiring fees and that go. The cost would be a lot less if this is reasonably expensive, if you know what I mean. So then people.
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so people just give like gold coin koha. That's kind of how those things work, and then it just bolsters. It gives you that platform to present your information. Obviously, you're very passionate about this. You want to get that out to people. So I'm just suggesting that it could be idea, and awesome. So, and also, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. I tell you, what's really nice to see so many people here sitting here afterwards, working a solution with us, because you know this is what we need. This encourages us, doesn't it?
Now, to join the group, do we need people to write their name down?
Yeah, we'll keep you in contact. We'll give you some extra info, and then any other questions that you've got, and the next meetings that we do, we can.
Next time you're having a meeting, can you do a bit of advertising? Because if I hadn't heard it word of mouth, I wouldn't have been here tonight.
Okay, well we did try to get the newspaper.
We did do Wyoming Weekly, but there was a problem with getting it in the Nelson Weekly. Next time we'll be more onto it.
You probably could get it in the likes of the swap thing.
Yes, yeah, that's a good idea.
Because it's free.
Yeah, no. I did get it in the community notices, but and that was free, but the other one.
And if we've all got Facebooks, we could all put it on there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We might have to wind up now, but if you have any other questions and answer, there's some paper at the back, and we are happy to answer them if you leave your contact details. And if you do want to join the Chemtrail over New Zealand group, leave your name and we can invite you into the group. I think it is from invited.
I think it's a thing over there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's DVDs here too if you want to grab them.